All right. So we're in here. Um, this is Trump and the G, and Ta-Nehisi Coast steals content from Trump and the G. So that's sort of the title of the show tonight. We're gonna briefly talk about our podcast and how people are trying to channel us. When we started Trump and the G a few years ago, there would be an opportunity to take conversations from the block to a town hall setting. Now we're doing it online in a podcast format, but we thought it would be interesting to bring economists, pollsters, politicians, activists, entrepreneurs together to discuss the economy and issues important to the black community and things that weren't being discussed in the corporate media. Okay. And we thought it would blow up. We thought we'd have town hall meetings with, tens of thousands of people showing up, and just not showing up in terms of the numbers of the audience or on our podcast. We don't have 15 million viewers on our podcast. However, people are following us. We just found out that Ta-Nehisi Coates has been stealing content from Trump and the GE, and he's been taken to CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and it's inuring to the benefit of these bigger platforms. He's pretending like he doesn't know who we are. So that seemed to be the game people are playing, watching what we're doing, copying what we're doing, and trying to take it to places that have bigger resources, and they're getting a bag out of it. He's carved out a niche for himself, or brandish an image of himself as being an autodidact, a tireless researcher. Sounds like a tireless grifter. That's what it sounds like. So I'm going to show, I'm going to share my screen and show how, a couple years ago we talked about the statues and Nathan Bedford Forrest, and Coach took this content directly to CBS and pretend like he didn't know who we were and copy it verbatim. So here goes.
No, whether you agree with it or not, if you want to trigger white men down south, go mess with one of those statues.
The whole statues issue is in Soviet Union, former Soviet countries, that was a big issue with statues. In fact, Hungary is one of the few places, if you go everyone in Hungary, outside of Budapest, 30 miles from Budapest, they have a place called Statues Park. Because and if you ever saw in Russia and Poland, had all these statues of Thomas Lenin and arts, and they're all smashed. But in Hungary, if let's not do that, let's take them to a place 30 miles outside of town, put them in one giant enclosure, and go to the statues parking charge people $10 to see them. Now, even with the statues, there's a lot of difference between Robert E. Lee and Nathan Bedford Forrest. And there's still 15 statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest in the South. Nathan Bedford Forrest was like 80 years ahead of his time in far as racism, whereas Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis, they wanted slaves, but Nathan Bedford Forrest was like Hitler. He wanted to kill the black people. And so he not only killed, he also founded the Ku Klux Klan after the war, but not only did he kill a whole bunch of black people, he resulted in the deaths of lots and lots of people, because when the Civil War started, and pretty much all wars at that time, the practice was with prisoners was when each side had a couple of thousand prisoners, they'd exchange them. And that, it's sort of humane and things like that. Nathan Bedford Forrest, because the Union had black soldiers, he had to execute them everyone. He demanded every single one be executed on the spot in Supreme Court. So Lincoln said, if you're going to do that, we're not going to exchange prisoners anymore. Mm-hmm. So no more prisoner exchanges. Many, many Southerners died in Illinois, where they had a prison. Mm-hmm. And, in Andersonville, in the South, the people who ran that got executed at the end of the war because they had pictures of starving Union prisoners, but it was all because of Nathan Bedford Forrest, and there's still 15 statues of him in the South.
Okay. Now I'm going to play. So he basically schooled us on who Nathan Bedford Forrest was. Now I'm going to play a clip from Ta-Nehisi Coates where he's talking about the 1619 Project. And he finds some odd reason to pivot to Nathan Bedford Forrest.
are dead wrong. I wouldn't, move for schools and for universities to ban a discussion of those ideas. I just think that's a totally different level.
Ta-Nehisi, what do you believe the critics of the 1619 project are worried about?
Well, I don't want to speak for the critics, because I think that I don't want to, get into a path where, I'm saying that it's wrong to criticize. I mean, I think the critics can speak for themselves. I think the people who are attempting to pass policy to banish it out of the public square are simply afraid of a fair and just accounting of American history. We're at a moment right now where people are pulling down statues and monuments and, et cetera. And we're having a much broader reconsideration of what the history of this country is. And there's some hard questions to be asked. Why is it that, for instance, in the state of Tennessee, there are more statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest, one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan, than all 3 presidents born in Tennessee put together? How can that be true? What's going on? And
Okay, so basically, a few things. So Coates is accusing policymakers of trying to dim Nicole Hannah Jones's light, who wrote the 1619 Project, and trying to dim the 1619 Project's light and trying to keep it from the public square. He's doing the exact same thing. He's trying to dim Trump and the GE's light and trying to keep our podcast out of the public square. If he likes our content so much, how come he just couldn't go on CBS or MSNBC or whatever and say, watch Trump and the GE? Basically took our whole show to CBS and pretended like he's doing it. Secondly, how come I can't go on CBS? Does CBS and Gayle King and the people on CBS have a problem with me personally? How come I can't, if I'm creating this content or we're creating this content, how come we can't go on CBS or MSNBC or Comedy Central with the source? That's why you have this. That's why Trump called them the fake news, and that's why Joe Biden has a disinformation department out. It's embarrassing. The United States has a disinformation department. This is disinformation. He's copying content, pretending like it's his. They say, imitation is I guess the ultimate form of flattery. I'd rather have the recognition as well. And it's costing us money. And he's getting the bag out of copying our content and pretending like he doesn't know who we are. Trump and the G is clearly the top podcast in the country. We put out heat. We put out information that you can't find anywhere else, which is what we set it up for to begin with. We knew this was going to be the ultimate outcome. The public's not aware of it because the corporate media doesn't tell the public about who we are and what we're doing. They're keeping us hidden. I know Coach has been a writer in residence at MIT, NYU, the Apollo, amongst others. I understand he's a professor of journalism at Howard University. Do these institutions co-sign this behavior? Is this what MIT and NYU and the Apollo promote to people? Being a writer is copying other people's content, pretending it's yours. Copying people's content and calling it research. That's what Howard University promotes to its students. That being a journalist means you go watch Trump and the G, copy this content verbatim, pretend like it's yours, and calling it research, and not cite the source. This is what Howard University is about. This is what Howard University students are about. I'm curious. But this is, I think, a lot of new age grifters out there who are hell bent on stealing other people's content and taking to the corporate media and pretend like they're creating this stuff. If we don't call it out, then they'll continue. But that's basically, we want to make sure our audience knows that we're the top podcast in the country and we put out information they can't find anywhere else. So that's Ta-Nehisi Coates steals content from Trump and the G. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you.